Hello, my name is Kristi Mair, and it's a real pleasure to be able to join you in this way, though I'm so sorry I'm not able to be there in person today. I am based in North London. A little bit about myself. I'm based in North London. I'm a tutor in philosophy, ethics and apologetics at a theological college, and I'm doing my PhD part-time. Currently in my 5th year of 6, so very much hoping that will be done soon. But I just want to say hello, and I'm very much looking forward to these 2 sessions with you. We're going to be looking at today, how do we go about communicating the hope of Christ and to our culture. And much of this material is based on these 2 books, which you may have come across, both actually by Dan Strange, one of my friends and former colleagues as my boss here at college. He wrote this book called Plugged In: Connecting Your Faith with What You Watch, Read and Play. This is great just to bring out some of the themes that we're going to be looking at today of suppression and substitution. And then this book, which is hot off the press, Making Faith Magnetic: 5 Hidden Themes Our Culture Can't Stop Thinking About, and How to Connect Them to Christ. So these 5 themes that culture can't stop talking about is what we're going to focus on over these 2 kind of 15-minute sessions. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview, and then hopefully in the second session we'll go into a little bit more depth as to what these 5 hidden themes are. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little bit of a think about what are these, well, Bavinck, whose work this is based on, calls it those 5 magnetic points. So I hope that these might bless your ministry, might bless your personal life, your personal evangelism, as much as anything else that you might be doing. So I just want to encourage you to keep going with Jesus and consider just different ways in which we can go about connecting with culture as we do that. So yeah, what I'd love us to do as we start is just in your mind to conjure up in your mind a picture of, it might be a person, it could be a friend, a family member, it might be a people group that you're trying to reach as a local church. Just bring up to your mind that those people in your life who you'd love to be able to share Jesus with more meaningfully, more significantly, more powerfully. This is all a work of the Spirit, but these tools, I hope, will be a great way in which he uses as a vehicle to share Christ to those that we know and love. I have a particular person in mind. I'd show you a picture if I were competent enough to be able to bring it up on the screen right now, but her name's Emily, and we've been friends since we were about 10 years old, actually. So friends for a couple of decades or so, and I think I'm at the point in my friendship with her where she kind of is able to say, well, I know, Kristi, that you aren't homophobic. I know that you aren't, that you don't hate women. I know that you aren't like a Bible basher or whatever, but all the other Christians are. And so at the moment, I think my challenge in sharing Jesus with her is not only bringing her into community and showing her what other Christians are like, that it's not just me, I'm not an anomaly. The reason why I'm different is because of Jesus, not because of personal behaviour or some kind of modification of behaviour. It's because he's walked into my life and thrown open the windows and let the light in. So that's my challenge, I think, is how do I go about sharing Jesus with her in a way that shows her Jesus and not myself? So I don't know who that person is for you, that people group, what those particular challenges are that you might be facing in your witness to them as you share your lives with them. But may I just pray, and then we'll start. Father, I thank you so much for this time that we have together now to dwell upon Jesus. I pray, Father, that for those people, for all those groups that we have in mind, that your Holy Spirit would please, as a result of today, encourage us, equip us, and show us how we might be able to carefully and thoughtfully and lovingly share Jesus with them. We thank you so much that your arm isn't too short to save. We thank you that salvation is your work alone. But thank you so much that we get to partner with you in that. And so I pray, Father, that insofar as it is with us, that you'd please equip us, encourage us, and show us the way forward. Just that next step, that small next thing that we can do, or things that we could say for our friends, that they may come to a true and clear and good kind of reception of Jesus. Please would he walk into their lives and hearts too. For we ask it in his most precious name. Amen. Excuse me. Gosh. Oh, I'm not going to re-record this. I've got the sniffles. Apologies. This might happen a few times. So, I wonder what kind of obstacles you're facing. And this is going to be one of the questions for discussion groups afterwards, is who are those people and what are the particular challenges that you're facing. This session, I have no silver bullet for you. It's something that I've been thinking about for a little while, and it's something which I think Dan's work actually has really served me in helping me to think about how I do go about sharing Jesus with my friends. So I'm going to give you some headlines from this book. But before we get there, just to kind of set the broader parameters of this kind of discussion, with which I'm sure you're so familiar with already, I've sent through a handout, so hopefully you'll have this, and then you'll be able to follow some of these quotes and questions as they come up. So the first thing is just thinking about our context for communication, and that's the reality that we're all religious, and this is partly why I think myself and Dan, when we're thinking about cultural connection serves us so much better than the word engagement. Engagement is something which you can kind of choose to do or opt out of. It's something that you switch on or you switch off. But the reality is that as human beings made in the image of God, not only are we image bearers, but we are created to as culture bearers as well, following on from the cultural mandate. And so really it's not a question of engaging with culture, but connecting with it in wise ways, because it's something that we just do all the time because we are human. But before we get there, that's just me and my little hobby horse, is the fact that we're all religious, whether we know Jesus or not. Everything that humans say or do or make tells us something about their view of the world, their commitments, their loves, their gods even. As I say, as we know, there are lots of reasons for this. Genesis 1-3 provides a beautiful clarity on this. We're made in the image of God. And after the fall, this has been fractured like a broken mirror, but we're still creatures made in the image of our amazing triune God. And so that means that sense of eternity that God has set in our hearts hasn't been fully eradicated, as we're told in Ecclesiastes. It hasn't been fully eradicated. We have this sense, we have this desire, it's there in humanity. We're all religious, whether we know Jesus or not. And so whatever we do is a profoundly religious act. As you may remember, in Genesis 1:28, God, after he's finished creating, he tasks Adam and Eve, his vicegerents, his rulers, or many lords of creation, as Calvin would put it, with the task of filling, subduing, and ruling the earth. And he gives them this cultural mandate to go, create, form, fill, and beautifully steward creation. And that cultural mandate is still in play today. So this cultural mandate implies that culture building is a religious act. There's a great quote here, I think, from John Frame on your handout, which you can read later if you like. That might take us a little bit too much time. We're already doing it 10 minutes. But the overall theme is that we are all religious, we all worship, and so everything that our friends, our family, these people groups that you might have in mind, whether they say that they're apathetic or not, whether they think Christianity is irrelevant, that actually isn't the case. They are profoundly religious already. They are worshippers, but they are worshipping the wrong gods. And so the people that we are speaking with have an awareness of God, but they are doing two things with that knowledge. Firstly, they are suppressing that knowledge. And secondly, they are substituting that knowledge for false idols. And that is precisely what we see in Romans 1:18, isn't it? that the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. The knowledge of God is plain. Everyone already actually has a relationship with God, but they've buried it, they've suppressed it, and they've substituted it for false loves that are going to break their hearts in the long term. Dan puts this really well in his book Plugged In. He says that, like someone violently holding a person's head under water in order to drown them, we suppress the truth. It's an act of violence almost. In our rebellion, we try and we squish and we stamp on knowledge of God. We get a big fat red marker pen and we just graffiti all over it. We don't want it. We hate it. For those who don't know Jesus, the God-given meanings that God has built into creation are given new meanings in the culture that we build. So if we just think about the way, for example, that culture views death, the year or so that we've just had, what God has given us in death is to show us that it is unnatural. And what culture has done is to say that what is unnatural, what is painful and terrifying, which God is telling us that there is something wrong through death, is now just moved out, and it's reinterpreted by culture as crossing over, stepping into the next room. It's inoculated in some way. It loses the sense of just terror and horror in the face of death. And so that is what happens. We suppress the truth that death shows us that there's something deeply wrong, and we are substituting that with a different narrative that says, it's just stepping over, crossing over, but just in the next room. So there'll be lots of other things as well that might be coming to mind as to how culture suppresses and substitutes the truth. And again, that might be something to think about in your discussion groups afterwards. So that's the first one, we suppress the truth. And then the second response to God's revelation is we substitute it. We replace him with other things that fill that God-given hole, which obviously they then become these ultimate things to us. Keller here, again I think on the handout, writes that sin isn't only doing bad things, it's more fundamentally making good things into ultimate things. Sin is building your life and meaning on anything, even a very good thing, more than God. Whatever we build our lives on will drive us and enslave us. Sin is primarily idolatry. And that's precisely where idols reside, isn't it? They reside on this level of ultimates, and also at the level of presuppositions. They reside on this level of ultimate explanations, there's ultimate authorities, ultimate commitments, ultimate loves. And if you'd like to, on your handout, I've listed Isaiah 36 there as to what idols promise, and there are a few verses there as to what idols actually bring. But how do we go about identifying these idols? Well, there are lots of ways of identifying them, aren't they? And again, I've listed a few questions on the handout. We could ask these questions, like, whose authority do I acknowledge? Upon whom or what do I depend? To whom or what do I give allegiance? Who or what can make me safe and happy? Who or what can sort things out? What do I look to make everything okay? Whose word of command do I sit up and take notice? What needs to be in place for me to get on with life? It's the answers to those questions that reveal what those ultimate commitments, ultimate authorities, ultimate loves are for our friends. So they're just a few questions as we move towards these magnetic points. So this is really the wider context in which we live and we love our friends. They too are religious. They too have a relationship with God through the knowledge that they've suppressed and substituted with idols. So how do we speak of Jesus in this messy mix of suppression and substitution? Is there actually any way to engage such hardened, deceitful and false God-worshipping hearts? Yes, there is, as we know, there absolutely is. Because obviously not only is Jesus able to save, But this side of his return, the relationship those who don't yet know him have with him isn't static, it's dynamic. So while human beings are so rebelliously sinful that when God speaks to us, we speak over him, that isn't the end of the conversation when it comes to our friends' relationship with truth. Again, here's an extract from Plugged In. This relationship is very dynamic. Have you ever played the game at the beach when you try to sit on a beach ball in the sea? You try really hard to get that ball under the water and you nearly succeed, but then at the last second it pops up 2 feet away and you have to start again. So it is with God's revelation and our response. We suppress the truth, but we can never totally suppress the truth. Reality keeps getting in the way. The real world doesn't quite seem to be the right shape to fit our hole. So there's a horrible grating sound as we apply force to push it through. Isn't that a great image? Everyone suppresses the truth, but it's going to keep popping up. Reality keeps getting in the way. Because we're made in the image of God, and because of God's common grace to us in creation, there will be points of contact. There will be entry points which enable us to engage with the deepest levels of worship and idolatry in human hearts. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to look at points of contact, or put differently, we're going to look at magnetic points. Ooh, I know. So there are 5 of them, and this comes back to the missiologist Bavinck. So he says that he writes about this, that there are these 5 magnetic points that he's observed across all cultures that are universal, regardless of kind of people group, culture, geography, etc. These are common to everyone, everywhere. So it doesn't matter which culture you're from, which language you speak, how rich you are. These are common magnetic points for image bearers made in the image of God. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of this now. Then we'll go into discussion groups to think about applying and thinking about applying what I've just shared. And then this next session, we'll go into these magnetic points a bit more deeply. So these magnetic points are based on these questions that are common to all of God's image bearers. So all of God's image bearers ask the same questions, and they are: what's my place in the universe? Is there a plan? Am I really in control, or am I being controlled? Can I be delivered from the mess of life? These are magnetic points expressed in the hopes, in the fears, and in the dreams of the cultural stories we tell ourselves. Humanity is restricted by something called their anthropological structure. It's what it means to be human. It's how we've been made. We can't move beyond that anthropological structure. We cannot outgrow it. We can't be who we want to be. These things are written into us, and there are ways that everyone responds to these common points of attraction in response to God. What's my place in the universe? Is there a plan? Am I in control, or am I being controlled? Can I be delivered from this mess of life? So we're going to use these magnetic points, which are common to everybody. They're in everyone because we've been made in the image of God, as points of contact that we can expose in our communication, in our witness, in our love of our friends. So the 5 points are these. There's cosmos, norm, salvation, existence, and power. Cosmos, norm, salvation, existence, and power. And I'm going to leave it there for now. We will share what they are in the next session. For now, enjoy your discussion groups. There are questions for you to think on. And I'll see you in a few minutes.